Hello everybody, welcome to our class. We are learning Alshech Kabbalah and we are studying an introductory article of the Baal HaSulam Rabbi Yehuda Alshech, who did a lot of work. He's the preeminent Kabbalist of this generation because he wrote for a modern audience. And so we are studying the articles. He wrote many articles, and when you start studying Kabbalah, you start by learning these articles, because these articles are meant to reorient the student and to explain to the student what Kabbalah is and why we would want to study Kabbalah and what it is, what it intends to accomplish. And so that's what we're doing here. So let's start with a review. And before I review, I just want to say that what we're trying to do here is like the analogy they give is like a camera lens, where you're focused on a certain plane of reality. And so what Kabbalah is trying to do is trying to refocus you to a more spiritual degree of consciousness, okay? So like refocusing the camera. So things can be right in front of us, and they are in this world. Things are very, very right in front of us, but we're not focused on them. And so we don't see them, and we have to learn how to tune our inner world to tune ourselves so that we can appreciate that there is a lot of spiritual energy that is being sent in our direction that we're missing, that we don't have the proper vessels to understand and to receive this information. The information is called the light that reforms. It means that the Torah is called light. One of the metaphors is called light, and light is meant to shine on you and change you. And so God is not going to change. We're going to change, and that's what we're studying, how to change and why. Okay, so let's start with a review from the very beginning. The Ari HaKodesh says that why was this world created? Everything that we see in this world was created for one reason, because it arose in God's mind to give over goodness to somebody. So basically, God had a desire that he wanted to give. He wanted to love. He wanted to have a relationship. And everything that we see in our world is flows from that desire that God had. And so the first question is, so then why does the world look so terrible? If God is all powerful and God is all good, then why is it that the world has so much suffering and so many problems, right? That's a very good question. And so the answer is, as soon as God desired to give over goodness, all this pleasure came off of God, and it immediately went into a vessel. It was completely received, that's called the world of Ein Sof in Kabbalah, that all the pleasure went inside a vessel, meaning everything that God wanted to give over was immediately given over. But there was a problem, the Ari HaKodesh tells us. The problem was that God wanted more, that this was really just a beginning stage in the creative process. There were three problems. One is that the pleasure was so overwhelmingly good that there was no place for the creature, that's all of us, all the souls that God created, to experience a sense of self, a sense of identity. And so because of that God wanted the process to unfold. And so there was something else. What else is there is that there was no free will. We weren't entering into this relationship. So if I came to you and I said, I'm giving you $1 million, there would be very little free will in that relationship. You'd say, give it to me, right? Of course you would. And so that is not a relationship that is mutually pleasurable for the giver and the receiver, because a person has to have a sense of self and be able to take care of themselves and stand on their own 2 feet, and then from that place of being so we know that when you enter into a marriage, you enter into a relationship, if you are a substantial person who is self-sufficient and you have character and you have an ability to make decisions, then you're able to enter into a relationship. So there was no relationship at that point in the creative process, even though all the pleasure was being felt by the creation. We don't remember this collective state of the soul, which was called the world of Ein Sof, the world of infinity, where this was being experienced. This is before our material world came into existence. And so there was one more problem, is that we didn't do anything to earn the relationship, to earn all the pleasure. So we know in this world that if somebody gives you something every single day, after a while, let's say your parents are very wealthy and they pay for everything, when you get to 14, 15, 16 years old, all of a sudden you're not so happy with the relationship. Why? Because your parents are giving you everything and you're taking everything, but you don't really you're not on equal footing. You're not standing on your own, on your own feet, and you're not able to, you didn't do anything. And you say, I want to go out and I want to get a job and I want I want to make my own money. Why do people do that? Because of this reason. It's because God created the world in this way that we would feel that we want to have our independence. We want to feel that we're accomplishing something. And so because of that, the created being decided, it's called Simsum Aleph, and this is when we're going to go back into the article now, but I went down this road, so I have to explain that we have Simsum Aleph, which is where the created being, all of the souls together said, you know what, I don't like this relationship anymore. I don't feel that it's working for me. And God made this as part of the program. So all the souls got together and said, it was at that point they felt like one big soul, and said, I don't want anything for free anymore. I want to earn, and that's called Simsum Aleph. So all of the light was pushed out of the vessel, and from that place, we started to distance ourselves from the Creator. And when we get to this material world, we see that we're in a world where we feel that we exist, but we don't feel that God exists. So it's the exact opposite of, so you say, why do we need to be in this physical world? So the word, in Hebrew, the word for world also means hidden. So the question is, what's hidden in this world? And so what's hidden in this world is God's existence. So why did God hide his existence? Why is it in this world that you see people don't believe in God, or you have to have faith that God exists, but you don't see God? And so that is by design, because God wanted to create an environment where we would have free will, a sense of self, and an ability to earn everything that we get. So from this place, we can start to build back. There's an expression now, build back better, which is it's a political slogan that's used a lot. But the truth is that it's a good slogan, because that's exactly where we are. That we are in the lowest world called the material world, and from this place where we feel ourselves and we feel our selfish nature, our ego, and we feel like we're locked in that, from that place is where we can actually start to climb the ladder of consciousness back to this place where we can experience godliness and anew so the creation we learn in Kabbalah is like a magic trick. On the one hand, we're trying to get to a place where we feel we say in Torah Judaism, Ein od milvado, that there's nothing else but God. So can you imagine a state of consciousness where we're going to get to, where we don't feel that there's anything else but God, a complete nullification of the self, okay? You're going to feel like, people do halavai, we say, as an example. People do drugs and they feel they have an outer body experience. They feel that they feel the oneness with the universe, and they no longer feel their ego, right? Their ego they somehow broke free of the ego. So you can imagine a state like that where we have this complete awareness that God is everything, that God made everything, and God is making everything, completing everything at every single moment, and there's nothing else but God in the entire universe, including what we're made up of. And so that's an incredible state, but at the same time, we're going to have our ego intact. That's what's very special about Kabbalah, is that in some other systems, they try to destroy the ego and leave the ego behind. But that's not what we're doing in Torah Judaism. In Kabbalah, what we're doing is we're trying to build a dual system called Mars HaMachpelah, a double level cave. Right? Why would we have a double level cave? Why did Abraham have two wives? One that was not Abraham, it was Yaakov. One that manifests the physical and one that manifests the spiritual, right? Rachel and Leah. These are two different states in Kabbalah. And so what we're saying, I know we're saying a lot, just let it kind of roll over you, that what we are trying to accomplish, which is so complicated in the creation process, is that we want to be in a place where we experience the oneness of God and at the same time experience ourselves. Two opposite things, two oppositional forces. That's why you see in Kabbalah, everything is how do you build on top of oppositional forces. You have chesed and gevura, right? You have left and right, man and woman, day and holy and mundane, all these different dualistic, the whole entire Kabbalistic chart is all these dualistic forces, right? So if you think about it, the entire project is one big formula for taking oppositional forces and putting them together. So our existence and God's infinite existence. So how do we have these two things at once? They're opposites, fire and water. How can you put together the fact that God is everything and you still feel yourself? Now you understand that's exactly that's the method that we are doing. It's called Torah and Mitzvos. And so
well, it's the whole challenge with the drug-induced altered state. One of the other alternative states is that the ego always came back in. You woke up the next morning or the next month or whatever it is, but there was that ego again. You never could have both at once.
Absolutely. So one of our star students here is talking about how what's wrong with drugs. Why not just use drugs? And so first of all, we just said that one of the purposes of creation is to earn what we got. So we're not trying to get back to the same place because we could have just stayed there. So if we wanted to stay in a place where we were just high, we just felt this fantastic feeling, then we would have stayed in this world of Ein Sof. We wouldn't have had this cascading of all these lower worlds until we get to the physical world. We wouldn't have needed that. So because we want to earn what we're doing, drugs becomes a shortcut. If you're just going to pop a pill or do some mushrooms or some psychedelics and you're going to feel this out of ego experience, it might be a nice reference point to see what we're talking about. But as far as being a shortcut for achieving the purpose of creation, it's not going to work that way. The irony, or it's something that's not expected, is that in Kabbalah, along with your selflessness growing, as you go higher in the world, as you become less selfish, as you become more interested in giving, and you become equivalency of form with the Creator, with Hashem, you become more similar to Him, meaning you're focused on giving, because God doesn't have any need to take from anybody, because He has everything. So God is in the aspect of giving. So the more we become like God, the more we feel God. We're actually growing the ego. We're not making the ego smaller. This is what people don't understand, is that people think, oh, so you have some other philosophies, and I'm not an expert in Eastern philosophies or religious spiritual practices, but from the little bit that I know, just from being a modern person and being in the modern world, that some of these systems, they don't want anything, right? I don't want anything. Wanting is pain, and therefore I don't want anything. And so this is not at all what we're studying in Kabbalah. Actually, in Kabbalah, we need to have a bigger vessel, because the vessels need to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So we had said this many times, and we'll go back to it, is that if I love pizza and I can eat 6 pieces of pizza, that may seem like a lot of pizza, but if I have 30 friends, I can eat 1 piece of pizza, and my friends eat all of them. I pay for the pizza, and they all eat the pizza. I've now, through their vessels, I've now eaten 31 pieces of pizza. So we grow our ego, we grow our capacity to feel things, but we grow it with an inverse character, instead of being taker and giver, right? So some guy can have a very large family and he works all day, right? So he's working all day, but he's thinking about his kids and his wife and the vacations and the Passover vacation. He's thinking about all these things that he has to pay for other people, for his family. And if he's paying for people in his community, if he's very wealthy, that's even better. People who are further away from him, right? But if a person's selfish and they just think about themselves, and they're running around and they're just, everything that they're doing is for themselves, then that's that is the problem. That's not the right. So we want to be big spenders, but we want to be having people who are not us, outside of our own egoistic self. In other words, we want to put the light in the right vessel, in Kabbalistic terms, right? We want to enjoy all the bounty in life, but we want to enjoy it through other people's vessels. So before we go on, I just want to say some more things, that when we say Kabbalah, we're really talking about Torah and mitzvos. Torah and mitzvos and Kabbalah are the same thing, and the Baal Shalom makes that point. He says there's absolutely no difference between the revealed Torah and the internal Torah. The problem is if there's a problem, the hurdle is, do we understand what we're trying to accomplish? And so if we don't understand what we're trying to accomplish, that's why as we got closer and closer to Mashiach consciousness, and the world became more selfish and more egoistic and more busy, it's much, much harder for us to understand what the Torah is really talking about. And so that's why we've moved in the later generations to studying more Pnimius Torah, the inside of the Torah. And so the inside of the Torah is literally just the methodology for transcending the ego. And so that's why it's very important in this generation that we study Kabbalah, because you see that people can even be involved in Torah and mitzvos, which is a beautiful thing, but not quite understand what the purpose is, not understand that there's some methodology at play here, that we're really there's an evolution of consciousness happening, and that we're supposed to be transformed. And so The more we study,
through making the vessel bigger for everyone, not self-centered, like you said.
that's
Not
the
just
whole
for
thing.
ourselves.
That's the
Yeah.
whole thing.
That's amazing.
So that's
Increase the
exactly.
ego through uniting with other people. Obviously, there's
We're
people-
really trying to build 5 levels on top of the soul. So these are all on top of our ego. These are really souls that are, but the way that we perceive everything is through our ego. So we have to, there's a paradox here because it's called a sixth sense in Kabbalah, where we have a vessel that we're not using yet, the spiritual vessel, the altruistic vessel, and that's the vessel that all of this information this light is supposed to go into, but we still need the ego to experience, to root us in the material world. This is something that we're going to clarify over many, 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 many years of study. But it's like a horse. They say in Kabbalah, it's like a Mashiach is going to come riding on a donkey, and the donkey is materialism. So we need our materialistic life in order to experience spirituality. So there's a paradox there. The whole thing is one big paradox. Okay. The last thing that I want to say is that that Torah and mitzvos, the system of Torah and mitzvos, Kabbalah, achieves many things. And so one of the things that it achieves is peace on earth. As people become more aware of their spiritual powers and their spiritual, the pleasure that they will get from spirituality, the people will rein in their materialism. They will be able to. So you see somebody is, let's say, a athlete, and they're trying to win a big race, right? So all of a sudden they have a very, very strict. They're able to control what they're eating, and they're able to control their sleep, and they're able to control all of these things that people have a very hard time controlling. Why is that? Because they have a higher goal. And so once we start to enter into spirituality and start to see the value and see the pleasure and the reward and the fulfillment that we get on the spiritual planes, we will be able to much more naturally come into balance in our physicality, and that's going to be part of what allows the world to come into balance. And different nations don't know where their borders are, and all these different issues, right? And so that's all stuff that it's all one thing. Everything is, that's what beautiful thing about Kabbalah is that it answers every single question, because there's only really one problem. The one problem is that our egos, or we're selfish.
Amen.
So,
Yeah.
one more thing before I go into the actual words, I want to say that I took some notes here, but try to hit some of the big points that we've gone through already. Is how does this have anything to do with prophecy? How does our achieving this balance with creation and inverting our nature from being selfish to being altruistic, how does this increase prophecy, right? We know that when Mashiach comes, there's going to be more people, prophecy is going to return. So what the vessel in which we experience godliness and we experience the transcendent is a vessel that's a collective vessel. It's in between us. And so the reason why I don't have use of this vessel is because I am, in my mind, in my heart, I'm more important than you are. So if there comes time to eat, I'm going to make sure that I eat more than I'm going to make sure that you eat. If it comes to paying my rent, I'm going to pay my rent first, and then maybe I might help you out if I feel like it, if you're my best friend, but probably not. So that is a gate that keeps us from experiencing. In other words, I'm not going to experience God through you. In other words, I'm not going to, you ever have this experience where you're having a conversation with God, and then all of a sudden somebody walks over to you and they say exactly what you were thinking about and talking to God, and literally they're giving you the answer, and you're like, whoa, I just can't, and so you have this feeling, oh, God just spoke to me through this person. Or another example would be is if you're walking in nature and you start to feel that, oh, I belong, I feel the air is coming out of the trees, it's going into me, and I feel that I feel the unity, right? This is an integral, I feel how the world is an integral system. So the truth is that is something that is many, 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 many more times more powerful that we don't. This is information that we don't have at our disposal because it's called in Kabbalah godless, katlus and godless, meaning that there's bigness and smallness. So when I put myself above you, that is what stops the godly flow from coming through you to me, because I have put up a barrier. I've said that I'm more important than you. So when I am in katnus with you, when I lower myself, and so when we study Kabbalah, we're supposed to have a group of 10 men and the women who support us, and we are supposed to all be in katnus. So we do the work, we do the study, and somehow we impress upon each other that I'm the lowest one here, and everybody feels that. And so when everybody feels that, there's a collective energy. It's like putting the electricity through the circuit. Until the electricity goes through, it's not just a hunk of metal. And then when the electricity goes through, now all of a sudden you have a radio or you have a blender, right? So there's no electrical charge between us because the vessels are broken. And so why are the vessels broken? Because we feel ourselves and we don't feel other people. But in Kabbalah we learn that there's always an example in materialism for anything that we might learn. There's always at least one example in this world. And so the example in this world would be a mother and her child. So a mother naturally feels her child. So a child, if a mother is sitting with food, she'll gladly put the food into her kid's mouth, and then she might take a bite, but she'll put it back in. So both of those mouths and stomachs are hers. And she feels, so if the child is unhappy, she's unhappy, right? So you see, if you can imagine that kind of relationship being grown and being increased to all of humanity, and we do that slowly. We do this first by doing it with ourselves and our people that we're learning with, and then we do it with our community, and then we do it with our city, and then we do it with our country, and then all the countries, each country has their own unique personality, right? And then we start to put this whole thing together like it's called like a spiritual body. So we have all these different organs, and we don't know which organ we are. We don't know how to put the whole thing together. So I'm busy fighting with you because I'm the lungs and you're the stomach, and I want some of the, I want the calories, you want the calories, and we're trying to fight over everything. But then when the baby is born, the whole system comes online, and there's no longer these cells. Like when I introduce myself to you, I don't say, oh, my stomach is named Bob, and my lungs are Tony, and my ears are. You don't do that, right? Because there's an awareness that everything is one system. Our sages tell us about that the world has not been created but for the purpose of keeping Torah and mitzvos. Meaning, as our sages have explained, that the aim of the Creator from the time He created His creation is to reveal His godliness to others. This is because the revelation of His godliness reaches the creatures as pleasant bounty that is ever growing until it reaches the desired measure. Okay? That doesn't sound like the world that we live in. Okay? So we just explained that we're in a developmental process. And so ultimately, when we get to this place where we all become one integral system, where we all love each other and we all feel connected to each other, what we are going to experience is that everything was made for this purpose of making us happy and bringing us pleasure, and the pleasure that we will receive is called Devekut with Hashem, which means connection with Hashem. And so if you have a trouble imagining what that might mean, just imagine the day that if you're married, imagine the first time when you fell in love with your wife, and imagine that how taking a bus ride becomes amazing, and having a slice of pizza is amazing, and everything, joke is funny, and everything. So what was missing? Why is my day not like that every single day of my life now? Why don't I feel that? Because the love is missing. And so when you put the love into that, you will immediately see that everything becomes wondrous and wonderful and pleasurable and fantastic. And so that is really the secret of Torah and mitzvahs. That's where we are headed. And the fact that sometimes it seems like we're in the exact opposite of that place is all stuff that's covered in Kabbalah, and that we have to start to understand. And the more we understand that, the more we can be doing the work, regardless of whether or not we are in a state of an aliyah, ascension, where we feel that we are moving into the oneness and feeling that all the great, wonderful things are happening, or we feel the opposite of that. Both of those things are states of consciousness where when you start to become a master Kabbalist, when you start to understand the method, you can realize that both of those states, Rav Nachman talks about it, all the masters talk about it, the Hasidic masters, that there is work to do when you are in a good place, and there's work to be done when you're in the place that is very, very difficult, okay? I'll just say here, before we move on, is that the tzaddikim, the righteous people, the people who are connected to God, actually prefer the state of darkness to the state of light. And so the answer would be, how can you say, how is that possible? Well, if you are you are the best cop there is, you could be, in the precinct, where everybody's telling you how great you are, or you could be out on the street fighting crime. And so you decide where you want to be, right? Do you want to be in the place where you're just getting all the goodies, or do you want to be in a place where you're earning the goodies? And so as we start to understand how precious life is, the more and more people awaken spiritually, the more and more they want to be in a place where they can do the work. And so that is just a little tidbit there. Let me just keep reading. This perfection is expressed in the words of the Torah and the prophecy, and in the words of our sages, in the simple word devekut, adhesion. Mm-hmm. But for the widespread use of this word by the masses, it has lost almost all its content. But if you linger on that word for even an instant, you will be overwhelmed by the wondrous stature, for you will picture the exaltedness of the Creator and the lowliness of the creature. Then you will be able to perceive the value of the devekut, of one with the other, and you will understand why we ascribe that word to the purpose of all of creation, of the whole of creation. Okay? So, we said this, let's just say it as simply as we can, and maybe you want to say it back to me, and you can say it in a better way than I can. God created somebody to give something to. So He created someone who likes to receive. That's us. And then God pushed us very far away from Him so that we would feel ourselves instead of Him, so that we could have a sense of identity and a sense of free will, and that we have some work to do to get back to Him. So that's why Kabbalah, a lot of reasons why people don't study Kabbalah until they're older, is because the best example is a relationship between a man and a woman, a love relationship. So if you are very far away from the one that you love, what are you going to do? You're going to try to figure out what that person likes and try to like those same things, right? So you meet this girl and she doesn't know you exist, and then you find out that she is really into sailing. So you start to learn how to sail. And so this is exactly what we're talking about here. This is a very, This methodology is it's a very practical methodology. It has to do exactly with what we're feeling all the time. This is not something that you have to learn that's outside of yourself. This is exactly how we're created. And so God created us to give to us. As beautiful it is to receive from God and to receive everything, we are the exact opposite of God, because God is giving and we're receiving. And so creation, all of creation was built, was structured so that we can slowly but surely become givers. And the more we become givers, the more we become similar to God. The more we become similar to God, the more peace we bring to the world. The more peace we bring to the world, the more the world becomes a unified place. The more unified place it becomes, the more we can feel each other. The more we can feel each other, the more we can feel God. And so this is the process of all the spheros and all the things that people are always talking about. It's very, now that we're in this generation, it's very, very scientific. It's very clear, and there's a methodology here that can be understood. And so what the Bala Sulam, Rav Yehuda Alshech, just said here in this article is that the entire creation can be said to be created. All of creation could be, God made this whole entire world the way we see it for one reason, so that we can attain adhesion with Him. How do you have adhesion with somebody? By being similar to them. How do you be similar to them? By wanting what they want. So God wanted to give over something to somebody else. So until you feel like you wake up in the morning and you feel like all you want to do is give to everybody around you, you are going to be distant from the energy field, from the light that is all surrounding all of nature. So if you went into the woods, if you went into nature, there would be an energy there, and that energy would be a system of everyone sharing. The trees are giving oxygen, everything, every animal is becoming somehow, with their own existence, is somehow feeding into a system where they are actually giving to every other animal there. And so it's all right, an integral system. And so that is what we are trying to build. And so the question is, if it exists in nature, in the animal world, how come it doesn't exist in the world that we're in the world of human beings? And the answer is that God left that for us to do. That's what Torah and mitzvos are. Torah and mitzvos is the blueprint, the instruction manual for that process, that we move to higher consciousness. Higher consciousness means that we move from our lowly state of selfishness to a place where we actually care and love and want to be connected to every single thing in creation. Okay. It turns out that the purpose of the whole of creation is that the lowly creature will be able, by keeping Torah and mitzvos, to rise ever upward, ever developing, until they are rewarded with the veikut, with the Creator. Okay? The Baal Sulam, that's what's amazing about the Baal Sulam, is he just tells you exactly what's going on. It becomes like just literally down to the scientific principles, to the steps of the methodology. It's all in order. And so in this generation, because we are so close to this turning point in consciousness, where all of humanity is going to realize that we're all really one integral system, and that we have to come into balance with each other. And that is why we're able to understand this. If you went back 700 years and you started to try to tell people this, they would have no idea what you were talking about. And that's why religion, people don't understand religion, but the religions are a way for a person to intermediate stages where a person who's not ready to hear things or not ready to understand things has to develop further. And so we are in a very, very special time now. Okay, let's keep moving. Now we have found a way to examine the purpose of creation, which is to cleave onto Him, onto God, in its true appearance. This exaltedness and the veikut, which is guaranteed to come to us through our work in Torah and mitzvos, is no more and no less than the equivalency of the branches with the roots. All the gentleness and the pleasure and sublimity, because of became a natural extension here, as we have said above, that pleasure is only the equivalency of form with its maker, and when we equalize in every conduct with our root, we sense delight. Okay, so this is very lofty language. It's written 75 years ago, but it's very simple. We just said, in this material world, in our selfish world, there's a very small amount of pleasure. It's very hard to be, right? As we get older, we realize, was it really worth it? I worked my whole life, and now I don't even look like, at least when I was 17, I looked handsome, and I looked like, and I could run all day and do whatever I wanted all day, and now here I am. So I worked very hard, and then you say, okay, you have kids, and say, yeah, but are your kids happy with you, or are you happy with them? And so we see that the world is a very, very difficult place. But the spiritual worlds are not places, it's not Mars and Venus. These are states of consciousness within us. And so we said before, if you are on the first day that you and your woman are falling in love with each other, and you are going on a bus, and you're eating ice cream, and everything is magnified many, many, many fold. And so the world's, it's when we say that there's much more pleasure in spirituality than in physicality, we're meaning that you feel all of the values that you put in your inner world, honor, respect, dignity, victory, right? All of these things, strength, power, right? Compassion, mercy, all of these things we have 7 emotional attributes, right? Zera Anpin in Kabbalah, and then we have 3 of the intellectual capacities, and then we have, even above us, we have these supra consciousness that we have. These are all these things that we feel inside of ourselves, right? Why don't I feel good unless if I go to work and people don't think that I'm doing a good job, I don't feel good. Even if I still get my paycheck, I'm not happy with it, right? If I go somewhere and people don't respect me, or I feel like I could have done better, why are these things bother me? Because those things, when they come into balance, and we feel all of those things. And so imagine your best day so far on earth when you were the man, and you went there and the girl fell in love with you and the boss gave you the compliment and you were the fastest and you were the strongest and you were the... Now, how do we get to achieve that thing? And so the answer is that God is very big and God created the whole world, and it's only when we put together the entire system and I feel everybody, when I feel that I'm happy, because there's enough victory for me to be victorious, but there's also enough victory for you to be victorious. And so it's not enough that I come into the room and I feel like I'm the smartest guy here, but everybody else feels like a little bit like stupid. That is not enough. We're never going to feel God. We're never going to have peace in the world. What we really want to shoot, that's why we say in Kabbalah that in spirituality we want to have big ego. We want to have a big, big desire, right? It's not enough to have a small desire. I have to come in and I have to say to myself, I want everything from God. What does everything mean? I want to come into the room. I want to have a day where everybody feels like they were the best at work, and everybody feels like they're the strongest, and everybody feels like they're the smartest, and everybody is so feeling so good that they are so not consumed with themselves, but they're only consumed with everybody else's happiness. So if that is the world that we're looking to build, and we don't know how to get there, and that is literally the method of Torah mitzvos, of what we're learning here. This is a strict methodology, step by step. As we learn how to do this, we can step by step, and sometimes it can be a very grueling process. There can be confusion, there can be setbacks, there can be all the things that we know that are going to be much even worse, much stronger and harder than we think, until something happens. It's God made it like that on purpose, so that it gets harder and harder. Why? Until I realize that I need you and you need me, and I need everybody here. That's why we have 10 men make a minyan, 10 men, they're 10 spheros, and the malchut, the bottom one, which is me, we give away. Why do we give 1/10 of our paycheck to charity? Because we can't use it. Why can't we use it? Because that's the me, that's the ego. So when the light comes in, I say, make sure these guys get their paycheck. Make sure there's 9. I say, these 9 guys have to get their paycheck. So what about my paycheck? I can't think about it. You just told me I'm not allowed to think about myself. Guess what? In the galut, in the exile, only I cared if I got my check. But when the geula comes, when the redemption comes, when we enter into these higher phases, I'm not going to care about my paycheck. But guess what? There's going to be 9 other men on my team, and they're going to demand that I get my paycheck. And I'm going to accept my paycheck because they are telling me that it makes them happy. We understand? So we have 10 people. This is the process in a nutshell. Listen to what we're saying. There's 10 of us, and we say we're going to live by the principles of Kabbalah. We're going to do Torah mitzvahs together, and we're going to really do it. You say, really? Are we just going to fake it? No, let's really do it. Okay, so we're serious Kabbalists, and we meet every single day, and we're doing this work. And so I'm only going to care about everybody else. So every single time I say I need food, I'm going to buy food for you guys. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to come in, I'm not going to have food for myself. I only bought 9 meals. But guess what? Everybody else is going to do the same thing. And then I'm not going to say, guys, I don't want to put it into my ego. I don't want to put it into my body. I don't want to break this vessel of altruism that we have here. And guess what you're going to say? It'll make me happy if you do it. So that's why we're doing it called Shem Shamayim. Hashem is going to say to you, you're going to say to Hashem, I don't want anything that you gave me, because I want you. I want to have a relationship with you, and you're a giver, and I want to be a giver. And then God's going to say to you, but I want you to take it. You'll make me happy if you take it. If you're healthy and happy and successful, it'll make me happy. Can you imagine that, Madrega? So you come home to your wife, and you say to her, I want to buy you a fancy car. And she says, no, I don't want it. She says, why don't you want it? I want to buy you a fancy car. Says, I'm worried that the car is going to come in between us. I'm worried that it's going to be so fancy that I'm going to be thinking about the car. I'm not going to be thinking about you anymore. You say, wow, what an unbelievable wife I have. What an unbelievable tzaddik that she's worried that anything's going to come between us. And you say to her, I want you to have it. It's going to make me happy if you have this car. It's going to make me proud. It's going to make me feel victorious. It's going to make me feel all the things that I want to feel in life. And you're going to be I'm going to feel it through you, by you doing it. So this is the puzzle. This is the collective soul that we're trying to put together. And it's what we're learning now is that it's very doable and very, very logical, and it makes sense. And somehow all the mitzvahs in the Torah, all the things we do, we keep Shabbos, we keep kosher, we keep all these minutiae of laws. The Baal HaSulam is telling us it's all about this one thing. There's not 50 different things that we're talking about. We're talking about one thing. We're talking about that when we do this one thing, we bring the Messiah to ourselves, we bring Mashiach, We do this, we enter into spirituality, we fix the world, we reveal godliness, we fix all the diseases and all the hunger and all the fighting. Everything is rectified through this one system because guess what? It's one unified system that comes back to one desire. What was that one desire that created everything? God wanted to make something beautiful and give over something beautiful to us. And that's why everything can be, we just talked about roots and branches. Everything can go right back to this one single desire that God had to make us happy and to give us the ultimate happiness, which is to be like Him and to be next to Him and to have a relationship with Him. And so all these things that we're doing, we have the Ari HaKodesh, we have Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, we have the Baal HaSulam, we have the Lubavitcher Rebbe, we have the Alter Rebbe, we have the Baal Shem Tov, we have Rav Nachman explaining to us what all of these things were, and we live in such a special generation that we're able to actually comprehend what is being said here, which is in itself miraculous. Okay, let's keep reading. Making sense?
Makes sense.
Okay, amazing. You have something to add?
No, that's
Okay.
good.
Okay, let's keep reading.
Keep.
Therefore, only those who keep Torah and mitzvos are qualified for it, because by accustoming themselves to keeping Torah and mitzvos in order to bring contentment to their Maker, they gradually depart from the bosom of the natural creation and acquire a second nature, being the above-mentioned love of others. Okay, so we just said that
Through doing the mitzvot, we're brought to this level of appreciation for the collective.
So it's more than an appreciation. What we're doing is we are acquiring, that's why we talk about acquiring 5 souls. So we have a soul that animates our material plane of existence, our body, and then we have these levels of consciousness that we are going to go through, the spheros. We have these different levels of consciousness, and as we acquire these new souls, we are building on top of our material existence, on top of our physical awareness, we are building higher awarenesses that are outside of our ego. We have our egoistic existence, and that is the desire to receive for ourselves, and that stays. It comes into balance, right? We want to be healthy. We want to eat the right amount of food. We want to have the right amount of all the things that we have. We see in this modern world that if you have too much of something good, it's terrible. So we want to have the right amount of all those things, like an athlete, so that and that's why you have all the halacha and all the Torah and the mitzvahs. You see the physical manifestations of all of these rules and all these laws are meant to make you, right? The Rambam is supposed to make you healthy. So why are we trying to accomplish this? So that we can then acquire these 4 higher souls, and these higher souls are, each one of them is closer to complete nullification, and as you become nullified, you become aware of God. So when you become nothing, you start to see that God is everything. And so the answer, we said this already, this is very important, is if without my ego, without my physical body, who would see that God is everything? So we have a paradox. We have, on the one hand, we have our ego that senses ourself, and we can then, as we have these higher forces, so somebody goes surfing, and they felt, you don't understand, I felt weightless, I felt like I was part of the wave, I felt like I was part of the ocean, I didn't feel myself at all. So, but you were there. If you didn't have a body and a mind and an ego to perceive that, you wouldn't be able to perceive it. And so this is the magic of the creative process, okay? So we're going to stop here and we'll go back. This was a wild class. We went in a lot of different directions, but it was a lot of fun. Okay.